Abdulkadir Khusanov is quickly becoming one of the best defenders in all of Asia. In fact, if you made an Asian best 11 as of today, I would argue that Khusanov would be right next to South Korean center back Kim Min-jae as the best defensive pairing in the continent. And that is despite just being 20 years old. Now, the Uzbek monster, who is currently playing football in Ligue 1 for Lens, seems to be on the move ASAP, with the Lens sporting director basically saying that he's gone in January. Now, I don't know if that means he's going to actually make the move in January or if he will stay with the French club until the end of the season, but regardless, he's going somewhere else. He is linked to a ton of different clubs right now, but the main ones that I see over and over again are Manchester City, Chelsea, Newcastle, Spurs, and Real Madrid. Based on the current financial landscape of football, I would say it's a 99% likelihood he ends up in the Premier League. Recent reports from Fabrizio Romano seem to suggest that Manchester City, as things stand, are the current favorites to sign Khusanov, so I'm going to be giving them special attention later in this video, but I will touch on all the other teams involved and whether I think it's a good move or not, and I'm going to give you guys a pretty brief summary of Khusanov's career up until now, because not all of you are like me and completely obsessed with Asian football and have been watching this guy for years. And honestly, this whole transfer saga seems a bit surreal, because I cannot believe that we are sitting here in 2025 talking about an Uzbek center back as one of the most highly sought after prospects in world football. If you're new here to Deadball TV, firstly, welcome. We focus a lot of our content on international football, and Asian football specifically is one of my favorite topics to cover. We have a playlist on the channel with hundreds of videos covering the AFC, so if you are also an Asian footy fan, I invite you now to hit subscribe. I think the craziest thing about the Khusanov transfer saga is that typically we see players from countries like Uzbekistan get completely overlooked and ignored. And if they are going to make some massive transfer, it's usually going to be to like the Turkish league or maybe the Russian Premier League. It's very rare that they make it into Western Europe, and I think that's probably a mixture of the scouting of the Uzbek league and, the surrounding steppe countries being quite poor, as well as there not being a ton of Uzbek success stories, for sporting directors around the world to look at and say, okay, if this guy did it, the player we're going after can do it as well. I mean, right now, comment down below who is the highest profile Uzbek player that you know. There's one playing for AS Roma right now who you guys should definitely know if you watch Italian football. You might not be able to name a single one. My point exactly. Now, Khusanov had the rare circumstance of leaving Uzbekistan at a pretty young age. When he was just 18 years old, he left Uzbekistan to Belarusian side Energetic Minsk, which sounds like a battery company, but it is a football club, before being purchased by Lens the following season for $100K. Let me say that again for the folks in the back. $100,000 for a player who was already making massive waves inside the AFC continent because of his performances for the Uzbek youth teams. Khusanov played every single minute of the 2023 U20 Asian Cup that Uzbekistan won, as well as every single minute of Uzbekistan's U20 World Cup. And I want to say in that time, he won some award for individual brilliance as a defender. I can't remember if it was defender of the tournament or something like that. My point is that there was already hype, at least regionally, for Khusanov. Many people super close to Asian football, myself included, could see that he was going to be one of the best defenders in the region very soon. And yet, despite that level of hype, Lens got him for $100K. I mean, that's got to be one of the craziest transfer coups in the history of footy. Lens got Khusanov for 1/3 of what Manchester United pays Marcus Rashford per week. I've said it 1,000 times. If you want value, if you want ROI for your purchases, look no further than Asia. Fast forward to present day, after just a single season at Lens balling out, the French club are now asking anywhere between $20 and $35 million to buy him. Now, why does every single club and their mother want Khusanov? Well, the main reason is athletically, the dude is a freaking beast. At the risk of sounding super hyperbolic, I would describe him as having the strength of a William Saliba, but the recovery speed of an Eder Militao. That mix of athleticism for a center back is invaluable because you cannot teach athleticism, ladies and gentlemen. Sometimes you either got it or you don't. And Khusanov has it in abundance. On top of that, he's a very strong one-on-one defender. His one-on-one tackling is very good, and he's pretty strong in the air too. Now, the biggest weakness for Khusanov, and remember this later in the video, is probably his passing and distribution. If you're looking for that kind of modern, revolutionized center back, the one that's always playing balls out from the back, the one that's good off the dribble, somebody like a LaCroix from Crystal Palace, or maybe like a Ruben Diaz in Man City, Khusanov isn't quite that yet. Now, he could definitely become that one day, but as things stand, he's a defense-first center back. As I mentioned earlier, Manchester City seem to be leading the race, so I'm going to focus on that move specifically for the next couple minutes. And this is where my personal opinion comes in. I think that Khusanov to Manchester City is an extremely risky move for the player. For the club, I don't really think it means anything. It's Manchester City. They have unlimited money. If he doesn't work out, they will replace him, which is part of the reason I think it's risky for Khusanov. And I'll admit right now, I am extremely protective over this guy as a player. He's one of my favorite in the world. I'm pretty protective over Asian players in general because they don't really get a lot of opportunity to mess up. And it's rare that you see them involved in transfer sagas with, Real Madrid and the other giants of Europe. So I want to see my boys succeed. That is the only thing I care about. So the reason I think Manchester City is extremely risky is, number one, the competition at the center back position at that club is ridiculous. I mean, when everybody's healthy, you're talking about John Stones, Ruben Diaz, Ake, and Akanji. Adding Khusanov would mean that they are 5-star center backs deep. Not 2 good center backs and 2 guys who are mid. We're talking about the captain of the Swiss national team. I don't know if John Stones captains England ever when Harry Kane doesn't. Ruben Diaz might captain Portugal. The point is, these guys are established superstars. I'm not even mentioning Vardio in that because he's basically a permanent left back with Man City now. Khusanov is going to be a $30 million Uzbek acquisition. That is not going to give him any priority over a single player that Manchester City already have. He could have a couple bad performances and be relegated to the bench. And just like that, poof, there goes one of Asia's best talents. Piling onto that, one of my other biggest fears is that Manchester City, because they were looking at their aging squad and they want to, refresh everything, are they really ever going to stop buying? I feel like they're going to hoard talent, much like Chelsea does sometimes with their loan army, and Khusanov is going to be relegated to the bench. The one thing that we don't know is, what do Manchester City view Khusanov as? Is he a replacement permanently? Is he somebody that they think is going to, allow the club to sell John Stones or sell Ruben Diaz or sell Akanji? Or is he being brought in as a one-season temporary deal because of all the injuries they have in the back line? That is what scares me. Another big risk with this Manchester City move is that Khusanov's biggest weaknesses are on the ball. You want a center back that's going to get stuck in? It's Khusanov. You want a center back that's going to spray balls all over the pitch? It's probably not him. And if you look at how Manchester City play and how much possession they have and how many touches their center backs have and how much they're expected to be involved in the attack, that's not his bag. He could develop into that 100%. I back this man's talent, but is he going to be given the time to do so at City? I don't know. I think at Manchester City, they're going to absolutely love his recovery speed because City often does have a high line, and pretty much the way to beat them in the last 5 years has been on the counter, and Khusanov will improve them in that respect. But I think if teams press City, or if he's being asked to hold the ball and progress, which he almost never does, that could spell trouble. And lastly, I just think there are teams that are linked to Khusanov that would fit him better. Newcastle, for example, I think would be the top destination given how they play. Even Chelsea, I think, would be a better landing spot than Manchester City, and I despise Chelsea Football Club. But again, I'm prioritizing the career of Khusanov. I'm trying to put all my bias aside, and it is really killing me right now, so smash the like button on the video. To conclude, would Khusanov going to Manchester City be a disaster? No. The guy has been thrown into the fire from a young age, and he has excelled at every single step. He's pretty much doing what Kim Min-jae did, but 4 to 5 years younger. I think the Premier League, regardless of what club he goes to, it could be Crystal Palace, it could be Southampton. I mean, they'll be relegated, but you guys get what I'm saying. The step up in quality, but mainly the step up in pace of play will be a big challenge for him. If he went to a Serie A giant or a La Liga giant, he would cook. 100% he would cook. But in the Prem, where speed is more important than anything, that's going to be an issue. Man City have crazy depth already, so once the entire squad is back from injury, where does Khusanov fall on the depth chart? That makes me nervous. And they have unlimited coffers, so if Khusanov doesn't pan out, even if he does pan out, there's no guarantee he isn't replaced by another $50 million, $60 million signing. Now, if this transfer happens, that will be absolutely massive for Uzbek football. Like, it's gotta be maybe the biggest dub in the history of the country, at least from an exposure standpoint. Like, again, we're talking about an Uzbek being the starting center back in the Premier League or in La Liga. I mean, somebody pinch me. Wherever he goes, I will back Khusanov to succeed because I do think he is that good. And I'm just praying that this opens up a pathway for future Asian players to make the move, because there are so many ballers in the region that have no clout at all, and they deserve it. And we just need more success stories like Khusanov to prove it. Those are my thoughts on Khusanov to the Premier League. You guys let me know how you feel about this down below in the comments. What team would you like to see him at? Very curious what you guys think. If you enjoyed this video, smash the like button and make sure you hit subscribe for more videos about both the Premier League, but mainly Asian football here on Deadball TV. I appreciate you guys for watching, and I'll see y'all in the next one.